The purpose of this section in our masterclass is to discuss the required skills you'll need before you can actually kickstart your business as a freelancer. I want to discuss both the hard skills you'll need as well as the soft skills. You don't need to be the world's best bubble developer in order to start taking on freelance clients. And so when it comes to actually becoming a bubble freelancer, I like to break the hard skills into 3 different stages. And these 3 stages are beginner, intermediate, and advanced. And these are all pretty self-explanatory, but as a new bubble freelancer, you should always start at the bottom and then gradually work your way down to the top. And the main reason for this is because your sole objective as a freelancer is to never overpromise and then underdeliver. And what I also find is that if you're to start at the beginner tier and then slowly work your way up, it also helps you build confidence as a freelancer. Now, each tier is also going to determine how much you can charge as a freelancer. Within our beginner tier here, what I wanted to do is just list out the different types of projects you could take on, as well as what bubble skills you should know in order to fit within this particular tier. I think these are great projects to take on board if you're just starting your journey as a bubble freelancer. So just understanding how you can actually build and optimize a basic database is going to be important. I also think being able to use custom states and URL parameters is going to be essential for almost any project that you create as a freelancer. And a big no-brainer for any application you create for any client is being able to make it fully responsive. So both across desktop and mobile devices. So I actually have a whole library of existing courses that explain how you can build these beginner projects. In our intermediate tier, this is where you can start building applications like marketplaces, social networks, and on-demand services. Building on top of the existing skills you would have within the beginner tier, I think it's important at this tier to really understand how you can build and optimize a successful database structure. So this is a database that can handle thousands of users and thousands of records. And then of course, also making sure that when you're performing a search for things inside of your bubble editor, that particular search is fast and responsive as well. Another big factor here is the ability to process marketplace payments. So this would be through using a tool like Stripe Connect, which just allows you to process a transaction on behalf of a merchant. And of course, there are plugins that allow you to easily do this, but being able to process marketplace payments is going to be absolutely essential within this tier. And then on top of that, being able to use advanced integrations through plugins. So these could be custom plugins like extensions on maps, being able to connect with third-party email service providers, so things like SendGrid or MailerLite. And sometimes these integrations will require you to source API keys. So this is when things can get slightly more complex as a freelancer. And if you don't yet have these hard skills as a bubble developer, here is a list of the courses within my own course library I'd recommend you looking at. And I think that all of these tutorials are going to give you a great building block as to how you can start learning these skills required of the intermediate tier. And within the advanced tier, this is where you can start building advanced applications like appointment scheduling or even applications with video-based features. So if you were taking on projects within the advanced tier, I'd recommend you have a good knowledge base on using API integrations. And that's not just sourcing an API key for a plugin. What I mean here is actually setting up a custom API and either creating or reading data from a third-party service. You should also be comfortable with back-end and scheduled workflows. Another important thing is recursive workflows. So if you're ever creating or deleting a list of data, recursive workflows will be your best friend. And these can definitely be a little bit more complex if you are relatively new to Bubble. There's also the ability to connect with external databases, as I mentioned. So you could use things like Backendless or AWS or even Google Firebase. But in order to connect these external databases, you'll definitely need to know how to use an API. And finally, you could also choose to use custom CSS. So if you find there's some Bubble elements that don't give you the flexibility you need, you can always add your own custom CSS to expand its capabilities. Now, if you're a Bubble developer who does not yet have the hard skills required within our advanced tier, I do have a list of resources here that you could use. I'd suggest you check out if you want to learn how to build your advanced tier skills. What I now want to focus on is the soft skills you'll require as a Bubble developer. The reason why I think soft skills are so important as a freelancer is because it's a key point of difference that you can offer over anyone else. Because if you can prove that you're not only a good Bubble developer, but you possess great communication skills and you know how to lead a client project, at that point in time, you're no longer just competing on price with any other Bubble developer. Instead, you're in your own category where you can offer more value than anyone else. So soft skills are going to be your main value differentiator. So if I was to break down a list of things that bubble freelancers think clients actually care about, it's more often than not things like how well the freelancer knows how to use Bubble. I know a lot of freelancers stress about clients only focusing on price, so how much the project will cost to build, or something like how fast the application is going to be. Most freelancers think that clients also prioritize how quickly the app can be built, or even the amount of features that they can actually bake into the app. Now, by all means, these are completely valid points that clients do in fact care about. But this isn't the only thing that clients are focused on when they start looking for a freelancer to build their product. Instead, what clients actually also care about is the relationship they're going to have with the freelancer. They don't want to work with someone they hate. They're going to want to work with someone that they actually trust. And so that's why it's so important as a freelancer to build trust. It's going to be one of your greatest assets. Clients will also care about how well the freelancer can clearly understand their goals. Clients also really care about the freelancer having their best interest in mind. So although a value exchange is going to happen throughout this process, clients want the freelancers to actually care about the projects they're creating and almost be invested in the client's success. And this, of course, all comes down to the trust and relationship that you can actually build with that client. Your ability to communicate as a freelancer is going to be one of the best tools you have. And I really don't see enough freelancers take advantage of this. If you go above and beyond to clearly communicate with the client throughout the entire project, what you'll eventually find is that there's no nasty surprises in the end because both parties are clearly aware of how the project is tracking along, and that can all be included in the overall service that the freelancer provides. Although you're selling services, not a product, it's just as important to deliver a nice experience for the actual client. And although the quote-unquote experience isn't a tangible item you'll bill out to a client, it certainly does impact the price you can charge for different clients. And that, of course, all comes down to the service you can provide as a freelancer. And so when it comes to the essential soft skills you need to learn as a Bubble freelancer, this can include things like rapport building. So before someone even becomes a paying client, it's important for you to be able to build rapport with them so that way you can not only relate to them, identify their pain point, but you can also deliver a value proposition that's going to be best suited to their needs. And now throughout that process, it's going to be essential for you to be relatable. Some other important soft skills can include things like communication, as I've just mentioned. It's also important as a freelancer that you take ownership of the project. The client's paying a freelancer to build this because they don't want to have to worry about it themselves. They want to pay someone for the skills that they already possess. If the client was going to have to lead the project, they may as well just learn how to use Bubble themselves. And so that's why it's essential for you as a freelancer to take ownership of the project, not only throughout the process of actually building the application, but also managing the overall project itself. And this actually leads me to my next point, which is being able to master time management. So as a freelancer, you're going to have multiple projects you're going to be working on at once. And so what you'll need to be able to do is identify which particular project has a core milestone coming up. So that way you can prioritize that and then deliver that to the client on time